Hello, I'm Anthony McGowan, and I'm here to introduce my new book, which is titled The Beck, published by my old friends at Barrington Stoke. It's my sixth book, I think, for Barrington Stoke, but it's a little bit different to the others. I've tended to be drawn to darker stories, so my Truth of Things quartet follows the travails of two teenagers, Nicky and Kenny, who have to somehow survive terrible deprivation and genuinely life-threatening challenges. Now, there is a little bit of that in The Beck. My main character, Kyle, has problems at home and at school. But it's much more of a light-hearted adventure romp, I suppose. Now, the book begins when Kyle gets dumped by his parents on his irascible and eccentric Grandad, and accompanied by Grandad's three-legged dog, who's called Rude Word for reasons explained in the text. They begin to explore the Beck, which is a stream that flows through the scruffy bits of East Leeds, which is where I went to school. Now, back then, the Beck, it's actually called the Wyke Beck, it's a real place, was little more than a sewer, although it was still a great source of adventure and play for us kids. But now it's been cleaned up, and as Kyle finds out, it has some very interesting wildlife on its banks and in its still rather brown waters, such as the incredibly rare native or white-clawed crayfish, which his Grandad shows him. But that wildlife has only yet a fragile hold, and the main plot concerns the attempts by Kyle and his Grandad to thwart a development which threatens the crayfish and the water voles and the slow worms that live there. So the Beck is a sort of wildlife adventure story in this essentially urban setting. And I wanted it to be exciting and humorous, but there are still some of those darker elements flowing through the story. But, spoiler alert, it's a McGowan book without a tragic ending. For once, nobody dies, and that includes the dog, although a certain ancient Elvis wig does come to a sad end. So that's The Beck, a book which I hope will educate and entertain and amuse my readers, and I really hope that you enjoy it. So thank you. I'm going to read to you from chapter 4 of The Beck. This one's called A Death in the Family. I'm actually going to read from the manuscript as the book doesn't exist yet. Here we go. Well, lad, said Grandad, looking properly happy for the first time as we stood in the Beck. It was a deep happy, one that didn't show with a smile or a laugh, but one you could feel like the warmth coming off a fire. I can see your feet are turning blue. Let's have a cuppa. Grandad turned around in the Beck, but for the first time he looked unsteady as the current caught him. He tottered and staggered forward. I thought he was going to fall face first into the Beck, but Grandad just managed to stay on his feet. But as his head jerked forwards, the old wig fell off and splashed into the water and went floating off down the stream. Bloody hell, he said, get it! I lunged for the wig. I missed. The current had it, and the wig gathered speed, almost like it was alive and wanted to escape. Rude Word had been lying there quite happily all the time, but now he realised that something was happening. He started barking, and he turned in circles on his back legs. Move your sen, screamed Grandad, along with some bad words. Use this, he said, chucking me his stick. I caught the stick and then scampered after the wig along the muddy bank, still in my bare feet. I managed to get ahead of my hairy prey, then lunged and speared it with the stick. It felt good, like I'd caught some dangerous wild animal. I gave a yell of victory. But I also felt a bit sad, as if the wig truly were a wild creature and should be allowed to roam free. I brought it back to Grandad on the end of the stick, dripping and covered in weed. I thought for a moment that Grandad was going to start crying. Look at the state of you poor old lad, he said to the wig. Then he took it and shook off the weeds and the muck, and he wrung it out like a dishcloth and then stuck it back on his head. Right, he said, cheerful once more. Let's go and put that kettle on. Later, when Dad came to collect me, Grandad said, "Let's do this again. Explore a bit more next time. See what we can find." "Yeah," I said, "that'd be great." "Was it all right at your Grandad's?" said Dad in the car on the way home. "It was okay," I said. "Grandad's got a dog with 3 legs." But there wasn't much chat in the car. Mum was quiet. And then I caught sight of her face reflected in the driver's mirror. Her eyes were red.